Alright guys, it's Logan back with Wasteland MTG, and today we're going to do our first deck tech on this show on Strategist the Strategist. Hopefully the video turns out good. Kind of got it set up there. So Arcades is blue, white, green, colorless for a 3/5 flying vigilance legendary creature Elder Dragon. And Arcades says whenever a creature with Defender enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. For each creature you control with Defender, assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power and can attack as though it did not have Defender. So, the point of this deck, we want to play tons of walls, go super wide, swinging with our walls. We're going to be drawing cards when we play walls, and walls have really good rates for their toughness, but they have 0 attack normally. But we don't care, because our walls deal damage with their toughness. So, this deck gets shut down really easily by instant speed interaction. If you have 15 walls and, well, Arcades won't tap, but Arcades attacks in, all your walls attack in, and somebody says, okay, in response to your attackers, I'm going to destroy Arcades. You cry, because if Arcades gets destroyed, now your walls can't do any damage. They don't block any, they just take 0 to their face. Woohoo! Yeah. So Arcades getting destroyed really shuts this deck down. But if you play in a very fair play group that doesn't run a lot of interaction, they just play big stompy creatures, and that's what you want to do. You want to play a lot of creatures, go wide, swing them for some damage. Arcades is a great fit. So let's get into the deck. We're going to start off, of course, with our walls, because that's what we want to do. So, first off, we got Shield Sphere. Shield Sphere is 0 mana for an artifact creature. It's old, but it counts as a wall. Walls, even if they don't say they have Defender, all have Defender. It's just only the newer ones will say they have Defender. So, walls are creatures with Defender. Creatures with Defender are creatures with Defender. They all count for Arcades. But anyway, Shield Sphere, 0 mana, 0/6. This is great. This is a 0 mana draw card if you already have Arcades. And if you're attacking, it attacks like a 6/6. If it's assigned as a blocker, put a -0/-1 counter on it. Great. Not much to say. 0 mana, great card. Next up, we got some of our 1-drop walls. JD Offshoot, 1 green for a 0/3 Defender. This one has landfall whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, gain 1 life. This is going to get us a little bit of life gain here and there. It's not going to amount to much, but again, 1 mana, draw a card. We really like 1 mana walls, because if we can have Arcades down and then play these cards later, this is just, like, if you top deck this, cool. 1 mana, there's my wall, and I draw a new card, awesome. Couple more 1 mana ones. Pride Guardian, another 0/3. When it blocks, we gain 3 life. Steel Wall, this is just a vanilla wall, but again, it's 1 generic mana, and it's a 0/4. So basically a 4/4 for 1 and draw a card. Perfect. Wall of Hope, 1 mana, 0/3. Whenever Wall of Hope is dealt damage, you gain that much life. So somebody's swinging at you with their big 20/20, throw Wall of Hope in front. Gain 20 life. That's an extreme scenario, but a lot of the times, somebody's swinging at you, they won't calculate for your Wall of Hope. You can gain a little life, sometimes live, if they're swinging at you with a bunch of stuff. Now we're getting to some 2 mana walls. We got Suspicious Bookcase, 0/4. And you can pay 3, tap it, target creature can't be blocked this turn. If somebody's getting low and you got a big wall, make it unblockable. This could kill people. 2 mana, pretty good. This one, Wall of Shards. This is a 2 mana, 1/8 with Defender and Flying. So this is 2 mana. If you have your commander, you're going to draw a card, and it attacks like an 8/8 for 2 mana. That's crazy. Now, it does have cumulative upkeep. An opponent gains 1 life. So, after you play it, the next upkeep, somebody's going to gain 1, then somebody's going to gain 2, then somebody's going to gain 3. So this will add up, but I mean, with all these cheap walls, you should be able to outpace them. Next up, Wall of Tears. Another 2-mana wall, 0/4. If Wall of Tears blocks any creatures, return those creatures to their owner's hands. So this is great. Somebody's swinging at you with their Blightsteel classes? I don't think so. Doubt they want to cast that again. Great wall. Another 2-mana wall. We got another 0/4. For each 1 combat damage dealt to Wall of Essence, gain 1 life. This is very similar to the Wall of Hope, just worded a little differently. You're going to gain a lot of life. People are swinging out on you, and you can block with this. Sometimes it'll die because it's only 0/4, but if you got Arcades, they might not, because it's going to deal 4 damage too. Next up, we got another 2-mana wall, Consulate Skygate. It's 2 mana, 0/4. This one's got reach. We like reach. We like flying on our walls because that gives us some defense in the air, even though Arcades does have flying as well. Wall of Tanglecord. This is 2 mana for a 0/6, so that's pretty good. And it's just got Defender, but you can pay a green and you can give this one reach as well. So more defense on flyers. Wall of Glare. Another 2-mana wall. 0/5 this time. Wall of Glare may block any number of creatures each combat. You got 9,000 Scoot Swarms coming at you? That's cool. Wall of Glare. Alright. I don't even know how to say this one. The Bird Monk wall. Orator of Ojutai. Another 2-mana wall. 0/4. Defender and flying again. When it enters the battlefield, if you reveal a dragon card, wait. Oh, I didn't even know that. I'm just catching this. You reveal a dragon card or control the dragon as you cast Dragon Lord Ojutai, draw a card. I've missed this trigger a lot. I thought you had to reveal a card, and I have only done that once because Arcades got put in my hand somehow. I revealed Arcades. But actually, this is perfect because Arcades is a dragon elder. Or an elder dragon. So, if you control Arcades, you cast this, perfect. You're going to draw a card and get basically a 4/4 with Defender and flying. Awesome. Angelic Wall. Another 2 mana, 0/4, Defender flying. I love it. Riptide Turtle. If they come out with a better wall, this will probably get replaced, but I just love the turtle. Actually, Angelic Wall is probably worse. This has Flash, which is kind of relevant, not really. 0/5, Defender. Another 2-mana wall, Wall of Junk. This one's great. It's 2 mana, generic, so you're not going to get torn up on colors. And it's a 0/7. So that's like a 7/7 for 2 mana. Great. Whenever it blocks, return it to its owner's hand. That's fine, because this is only 2 mana. So if we block with this, we put it in our hand, and we can play it again. And if we have Arcades, we'll draw another card. So this is awesome. Wall of Frost. Now we're doing our 3-mana walls. These ones, once we get above 2 mana for our walls, we really want them to have some sort of really good effect for us or be really big. So this one is 0/7. That's a pretty big wall. Whenever Wall of Frost blocks a creature, the creature does not untap during its controller's next untap step. It will untap the next one after that, but it basically taps it down so on their next turn they can't hit us with that again. If it even lives, since this is going to be dealing 7 damage if we have Arcades. Great wall. Next up, Wall of Denial. This is what I'm talking about. 3 mana, blue 1 for a 0/8 Defender Flying Shroud. I mean, Defender is not really a keyword in this deck, it just enables us. So really it's got Flying and Shroud, and it's basically an 8/8 that draws you a card for 3 mana. That's crazy. Alright. Hover Barrier. Another wall. This one's a 0/6 with flying. Sweet. Love our flying walls. Tree of Redemption. This is the biggest wall in the deck at 4 mana. I think there's maybe 1 or 2 other ones at 4 coming up. But this one is a 0/13, which is crazy. But you can tap it and exchange your life total with Tree of Redemption's toughness. So, if you got Tree of Redemption and somebody's got you super low on life, say you're at 1 or 2 health, you can tap this, you'll go up to 13. That's awesome. Or, if you got all your little life gain guys going, and you're at 50 life and you're confident you'll go up a little more, tap this, you'll go to 13. That's not bad. You probably got a bunch of walls to defend yourself. And now you basically have a 50-50 for 4 mana. And if it gets tough, tap it, switch it back. It's all good. Super interesting card. Sometimes it's really cool. Sometimes it's just a 13-13 for 4, and that's cool too. Wall of Nets. This one's very interesting. White, white, and 1 for 0/7. At the end of combat, remove from the game all creatures blocked by Wall of Nets. If Wall of Nets leaves play, return to play under their owner's control all creatures removed from the game with Wall of Nets. This one is okay. It's not great, but it's a really interesting card. You do need to be careful if you're blocking a ton of stuff and then say you board wipe or somebody else board wipes, and all of a sudden, boom, everybody else has a board except for you. But it does remove some stuff, so sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't, but it always makes for an interesting combat when this card hits the battlefield. Next up, we have our Wall Lord, our Stalwart Shield Barriers. 2 mana for a 0/3 with Defender. Other creatures you control with Defender. Now this is cards that say they have Defender and cards like this, Wall of Nets. Does not say it has Defender, but it is a wall. So via the errata, all walls have Defender. So this will pump all your walls by 0/2, which with Arcades, them dealing damage with their toughness, basically a +2/+2 Lord on a 0/3 or a 3/3 body for 2 mana. This is amazing. Next we got Flump. This is a super funny card. Love this card. It's 2 mana, 0/4, Defender, and Flying, which we always love. Whenever Flump is dealt damage, you and target opponent each draw a card. So, this is a great card. Toward the later game, once you already have Arcades, it's less likely that people are gonna smack Flump for you. But in the early game, before you have Arcades, this is one wall you probably will play first. Normally, we're not really gonna play walls until we already have Arcades out. We wanna play Arcades, then start playing our walls to draw cards. This is one we might play early, because if it's still a 0/4, it's very easy to be like, hey, you wanna hit me with your 2/2? I'll block it with Flump. None of our creatures die. You can draw a card, I can draw a card. Great. This helps us draw cards even before we have our commander. Love it. Drift Phantasms. 3 mana, 0/5 wall, fine. Cool. But if we need to, we can pay blue, blue, and 1, and we can transmute, which means we discard this card, search your library for a card with the same converted mana cost, which is 3, reveal that card, put in your hand, shuffle your library. Play only as a sorcery. So during our turn, we can pay 3, we can pitch this, and we can search for a 3-drop. I'll show you a couple of those really good 3-drops to search for later. This is a great card. Another 2 mana wall, 0/3 with Defender. That seems kind of small for 2 mana. Most of our 2 mana walls are a lot bigger, but Ludovic's Test Subject, if we somehow, or Katie's has been destroyed a bunch of times, we don't have a hand, or we just have a surplus of mana, because I'll show you a couple of our ramp cards in a minute. We can pay blue and a 1, put a hatchling counter on Ludovic's Test Subject. Then, if there are 5 or more hatchling counters on it, remove them all and transform it. It's 10 mana to transform, but sometimes we don't have anything to do. And if we transform it, we get Ludovic's Abomination. It's a 13/13 with trample, and it is not a wall and does not have Defender. So, this is a way, if Arcades has been dealt with tons of times, that we can still do something. So this is great. Wall of Mulch. Another little draw here. 2 mana, 0/4 Defender. Sweet. And pay 1, sacrifice a wall, which clearly we have tons of. Draw a card. This is great if you're just searching for something to do. You know, you're cornered, you're looking for that board wipe. This can help you dig to get it, because it does not require you to tap it. Only pay a green. Wall of Roots. You may put a -0, -1 counter on Wall of Roots, add green to your mana pool, activate this only once each turn. So this helps, basically, you can use it 5 times to help generate a little bit more mana. This is one you might play before Arcades. Play this on turn 2, then on turn 3 you play your land. You got 3 lands, put a minus counter on this, get Arcades out a turn earlier. Love that. Basically it's like a mana dork, but you can only use it 5 times. That should be plenty. Gatekeeper Vine, 2 mana, 0/2. This is one of the smallest walls in the deck. But when it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land card or a gate card, reveal it, put it in your hand. This is fine. Early game, you play this, make sure that you hit your land drops for the coming turns. Late game, okay, you already have Arcades. 2 mana, get a body, draw a card, get a land in your hand to ensure your next land drop. Fantastic. Vine Trellis, 2 mana, 0/4, and it taps for green. So again, we love these 2 mana walls because they can get Arcades out on turn 3, a turn early. If you play them before you have Arcades in the early game, or late game, it's a little bit of late game ramp, and you draw a card because it's a wall. Another one, 2 mana, 1/2, Defender. Now this one again, taps for 1, and if we pay 5 and 2, it can transform into a 4/6 that does not have Defender, so we'll be dealing 4 damage even if you do have Arcades, not 6. But it taps for 2 colorless, Eldrazi Werewolf, Wolven Abomination. I've flipped to this 2 or 3 times, so it does happen. But again, can get Arcades out early, draws you a card, works great. These two, all stars, they're amazing. 2 mana, green and 1 for a 0/4 Defender. Tap, add green for to your mana pool for each creature with Defender you control. This thing is literally ridiculous. This is like a Gaia's Cradle for your wall deck, but it doesn't cost $1,000, and it draws you a card. It doesn't take up a land drop for the turn. It's ridiculous. This card is amazing. This one, 3 mana, 0/3, slightly less stats. But again, tap, add X mana in any combination of colors to your mana pool, where X is the number of creatures with Defender you control. This is the same thing as Overgrown Bombardment, but it doesn't give you green mana, it gives you any color of mana. Amazing. Both of those are all stars in this deck. 2 mana, 0/4, Flash, Defender, Jeskai's Barricade. When Jeskai's Barricade enters the battlefield, you may return another target creature you control to its owner's hand. What you really want to do with this is play this. It's a wall. You're going to draw a card. If you have Shield Sphere, it's great. You bounce that. It's 0 mana. Play it again. Draw another card. If you can bounce a 0, a 1, or a 2 mana wall with this, you can just draw tons of cards during your turn. Caravan Caratid, I think? Green, 1. So 3 mana, 2/5 with Defender. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card. So, Arcades says, when a wall enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. So, 3 mana, you get basically a 5/5, or if Arcades isn't around later, it's a 2/5. But you're going to pay 3 mana. This is going to enter the battlefield. Arcades says draw a card, and then this says draw a card. So 3 mana, draw 2. And you get a 5/5. Yeah, sure. Sounds great. Wall of Blossoms, this is just even better. This is 2 mana. Enters the battlefield, draw a card. So you're drawing 2. Amazing. Wall of Omens, same exact card, but it's white. So another 0/4, 2 mana, draw a card. If you have Arcades, draw another card. Awesome. Jungle Barrier. This is a 4 mana version. Again, we don't have very many of these, but this is going to enter the battlefield and draws a card. So we're going to draw 2. Amazing. All right. Now we're moving in. So that's our walls. I think we got I think it's like 30 to 40 walls in this deck. Pretty sure it's like 35. It's quite a lot. But every time we play a wall, we're going to draw a card off of it. So it's great. All right. So let's get into some of the ramp now. We got Soul Ring, of course, Arcane Signet, Nature's Lore, because personally I like to focus on land ramp a lot more than artifact ramp. Artifact tends to get swept up in your Vandal Blast or any of those artifact board wipes. So, of course, the Soul Ring, it's just ridiculous. it's mana positive on a mana rock. It's great. So we're going to run that. Arcane Signet is the perfect mana fixing. Taps for any of our colors, blue, white, or green. Other than that, we want to run mainly ramp on our walls, which we already saw, because that synergizes great. Or I like land ramp. So we're running our regular multicolor, if you're not only in green, land ramp package of Nature's Lore, 3 visits, and the reason I said not only in green is Farseek. Don't run this in your mono green decks. It doesn't do anything. So that's our ramp. Only a couple, because we have so many of our ramp on our walls. So we only got, I think, 6 or 7 here. Then we got some win cons, some overrun effects. Tetsuo Umezawa's Fugitive. This is 2 mana for a 1/3 legendary creature human rogue. Creatures you control with power or toughness 1 or less cannot be blocked. This kills people. If you have a ton of walls and you play this, all your walls are dealing damage with their toughness, but their power is still probably 0. There's a few, like the Jungle Barrier, who have 2. But I think there's 2 walls that have 2 power or more. So this thing literally just says, all your creatures are unblockable. You're going to kill people with that. Tower defense. All your walls get +0/+5. That's like +5/+5 for 2 mana. You're going to kill people with this. If you have 10 walls and you do this, that's pumping your board by 50 damage. That's crazy. Trying for the hordes. +1/+1. Trample. Infect. If you're giving your walls, which are like between 4 and 8 toughness, now they're going to be between 5 and 9 toughness, and you're giving them trample and infect, people are dying. Like I said, 10 walls is not even a lot in this deck. So if you're playing a Craterhoof +10/+10, that's even more than the +0/+5. People die. But people are not going to die if you die first. So let's talk about removal. Rapid hybridization. Destroy target creature, instant speed, 1 mana. They get a 3/3. Sure. Pretty much all of our walls can block a 3/3 and kill it. We don't care about that. Pongify, same thing, except they get an ape instead of a frog lizard. These are great. Staples of blue, in my opinion. Swords of Plowshares, Path to Exile. Again, staples of white. 1 mana, instant speed, exile a creature. Swords gives them life equal to its power. Path gives them a land. Alright, board wipes. We run, I think, 6 board wipes in this deck. Because walls have a lot of one-sided board wipes. Follow the Mighty, 5 mana, sorcery. Destroy all creatures with power greater than target creature's power. Yeah, so a lot of the times you're going to play this and you're going to choose Arcades. Arcades has 3 power. So everything with greater than 3 power dies. There's not a single thing with greater than 3 power in this deck unless you've played Craterhoof and didn't win somehow, or you flipped over Ludovus test subject, in which case you're probably fine with that dying, because if you had enough mana to flip that over, you're probably not in a great spot. This is an amazing, basically one-sided board. Austere Command. This is great in this deck. You can destroy all artifacts, you can destroy all enchantments if people are going off with those, or destroy all creatures with mana value 3 or less. Probably not going to do that. What you're probably going to do is destroy all artifacts or enchantments, and then you're probably going to destroy all creatures with mana value 4 or greater. This does destroy Arcades, but pretty much everything else is going to stay around. So if you play this, choose the 4th mode and artifacts or enchantments, then you recast Arcades. If it's super late game, I mean, you can win the game right there if you go to combat. Winds of Abandon, sorcery, white and 1, so 2 mana, and it's basically a Path to Exile, Path to Exile, where you are exiling a creature you don't control, and, well, that's the difference. You can't exile something you own. It has to be something your opponents can control. But the key with this, and they do get the basic, but the key with this is you can overload it. So if you pay 6 and you overload this, you exile all creatures you don't control. They search their library for basics equal to how many creatures you exiled of theirs. and then they shuffle their levers. Do not do this unless you are trying to kill them. Because if they run a lot of basics and you exile 10 creatures, you're giving them 10 mana. That is very scary. So be careful when you use this, because it can be bad. But if you have a big army and you're like, I overload this, exile their stuff, the lands enter tapped, they have a bunch of mana on their next turn, but they're not going to get another turn because you're going to kill them, this is crazy. This is the 3 mana spell I was talking about earlier. If you're transmuting that wall that has transmute, I've transmuted for this card many, many times. This is white, 1, 3 mana for sorcery. Each player chooses any number of creatures he or she controls with total power 4 or less, then sacrifices all other creatures he or she controls. You're facing big Eldrazi with Indestructible. You're facing a board that you can't target, you can't do anything about. Use this, you choose Arcades, who has 3, and then, I don't know, if you have a wall that has like 1 power, there's a couple of those, you choose that. All your other walls have 0, so they're gonna live. Maybe you sack like 1 or 2 of your walls that have 2 power, but who cares? You're losing maybe 1 or 2 creatures. They're gonna sack basically their whole board. I've had people where all their creatures are 5 or more power, and they can't even pick anything. They just sacrifice everything. For 3 mana, this is great. Gets around Indestructible, gets around Shroud, Hexproof, all of that. Wave of Reckoning, each creature deals damage to itself equal to its power. Arcades is a 3/5. All of our other stuff has greater toughness than it does power. This is basically kills none of our stuff and kills most of our opponent's stuff. Cyclonic Rift, again, basically one-sided board wipe. You can use it to bounce one thing, which sometimes is relevant, but a lot of the times you're just going to end step, Cyclonic Rift, they have no board, go in with your walls, that's the game. Somebody's swinging at you for lethal, save yourself, kill them on the crackback. Everybody knows Cyclonic Rift. Some people don't like it. If you don't, that's fine. You can replace it with something else. Swiftfoot Boots, Lightning Greaves. Like I said, one of the big cruxes of this deck is if Arcades dies, you can't do very much. So we need to protect Arcades. These are going on Arcades almost all the time. They are useful if you have one of those walls that taps for a lot of mana. Throw it on there, give it haste, tap it. Now you have your mana, put this back on Arcades. Arcades needs the protection. So we got those 2 there. We also have Heroic Intervention. Protects us from those board wipes that destroy and protects Arcades, giving Hexproof and Indestructible. Teferi's Protection. This can make you just not lose the game. It can also phase out your board if someone's going to board wipe. Teferi's Protection is amazing. Nothing more to say. Reconnaissance. This is a very cool Exodus card. It is 1 mana enchantment. Pay 0. Remove target attacking creature you control from combat and untap it. So what's really cool about this is that, and you can look up the Oracle text if you don't believe me, because I did the first time I heard this. Reconnaissance can be activated basically anytime during combat. So here, I'll lay out a scenario for you. We have tons of creatures. We attack. Okay. Let's say we have 5 creatures. They have 3 blockers. They choose to block our 3 creatures and let 2 of them go through. So then what we do is, if our creatures will kill theirs, we leave them in combat. We'll let them go to damage. If our creatures would die, we'll activate Reconnaissance and pull just that creature out of combat. Okay? Then that combat basically doesn't happen because we pulled that creature out. Our other creature will do combat damage with theirs, and their creature will die. Sweet. Our other 2 creatures that weren't blocked, they'll do damage to their face. Now, still in combat, after damage, we'll activate Reconnaissance for each of our creatures to untap them and remove them from combat. But they've already dealt damage. That damage stays, but the creatures get untapped and removed from combat. So this is like Vigilance, but just better, because our creatures can do the damage and still be untapped, just like Vigilance. But if they would flash in a blocker, okay, cool. Oops, didn't know you were going to do that. Remove our creature from combat, no loss. Reconnaissance is ridiculous. it gives you complete and utter control over everything that happens during your combat step. You'll never lose creatures during your combat. You'll only get the best outcome after you know how blocks are declared. The best thing you could want would happen. There's no reason to not full swing with reconnaissance. If they use comeuppance and they're about to kill you, cool, I remove all my creatures. Wow. Amazing. Wild Pair. 6-mana enchantment. This is like, besides Critterhoof, probably the most expensive spell in the deck. But it's crazy. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield, if you cast it from your hand, which we're casting all of our spells, you may search your library for a creature card with the same total power and toughness, put it on the battlefield. If you do, shuffle your library. So if we have this on the battlefield, and then we cast one of our walls that's a 0/4, we'll go search for another wall that's a 0/4 or a 1/3, or I don't think there's any 2/2s, but you get the gist. And since Arcades is enter the battlefield, draw a card, not when you cast a wall, when we cast a wall, we get another one with this, and when both those walls enter the battlefield, we'll draw 2 cards with Arcades. This just lets you pop off. You're going to be drawing so many cards, casting so many more walls, getting more walls, drawing more cards. The only limitation when you have this is how much mana you got. Next we have a couple of little stacks pieces. Only 2, but they're so good in this deck because they're basically one-sided stacks. It's insane. 1 mana, artifact, we have Meekstone. Any creature with power greater than 2 may not be untapped as normal during untapped phases. So if someone's got a 3/3 or bigger, it's just not going to untap. Arcades has Vigilance, so he'll never tap, and none of our creatures besides Critterhoof again have more than 2 power. So all of our stuff is totally unaffected. Anybody else can't untap their creatures. Even if it's a big mana dork, won't untap. Sorry. Amazing. Crackdown, very similar. Non-white creatures with power 3 or greater do not untap during their controller's untap steps. It's basically Meekstone, except exclusively worse. Instead of 2 power, it's 3, and instead of affecting all creatures, it's only non-white. But again, this draws so much hate. People, when I play this card, are like, oh my god, I don't know what to do. So, amazing. Noxious Revival. This is amazing. It's 2 life. It's basically free, or it's a green mana. Instant speed. Put target card from a graveyard on top of its owner's library. This is going to let you get your win cons back. It's going to let you get that Meekstone or Crackdown back. It's going to let you grab that wall that draws you a card, and then play it, draw 2 cards, get you back in drawing if you got wheeled or something. It lets you do so much. It's crazy. And the fact, now this doesn't happen often, but from a graveyard on top of its owner's library. Doesn't happen often, but the gotcha moment when somebody's doing graveyard shenanigans and you say, I'll respond to that. I'll play Noxious Revival and put that card that you need in your graveyard on the top of your library. And they go, oh no. And they have no response. I've been got by that. I've had friends, I was going to combo off and win the game. And he went, Noxious Revival, I'll put that on top of your library. And I went, oh crap. There's nothing I can do. And I lost the next turn. When that happens, makes Noxious Revival so worth it, despite the fact it's a good card even without that scenario. So the fact it can do that is amazing, even when you're tapped out for just 2 life. Great card. Alright, let's finish up with lands. Command Tower, of course. Everybody knows it. Great land. We got our Triomes, Para's Headquarters. This is a great fetch target. If you're fetching a land on turn 1, comes in tapped. You're probably not playing anything your first turn or 2 in this deck because you really want Arcades out first. So this is great. Plaza of Heroes. Again, Arcades is pivotal. This is just a colorless land, taps for a waste. Or if you already have Arcades, or wait, add 1 mana of any color. Oh, that's right. Or it's a rainbow land to cast Arcades in this deck since it's one of our only legendaries. And if you already have Arcades, then it can tap for any color among legendary permanents we control. So most of the time, the first thing you want to cast anyway, unless you're casting ramp to get Arcades, is Arcades. So it's a rainbow land, and as a bonus, you can pay 3, exile it, target legendary creature gains hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. So this helps us cast Arcades. This is perfect mana once we have Arcades, and it helps protect Arcades. Everything we could ask for on a land. Reliquary Tower, like I said, we run over 30 walls, we're drawing tons of cards, sometimes multiple cards off one wall. I am normally not a fan of this card. I'm sure we'll talk about it on the channel later. But in this deck, where you're drawing so many cards every single turn, it's justified. Next, we got our classic fetch lands, Windswept Heath, Flooded Strand, Misty Rainforest. Our shock lands, Breeding Pool, Temple Garden, Hollowed Fountain. Our Battle Bond lands, or opponent lands, enters the battlefield untapped unless you have tapped unless you have 2 or more opponents. So in Commander, these are basically just dual lands without types. They are just lands, they do not have land types. But they're great. These are always my 3rd land I include, land cycle I include. Bountiful Promenade, Rejuvenating Springs, Sea of Clouds. Next up, we have the lands from Crimson Vow and Innistrad Midnight Hunt. These have become staples in my decks. They're amazing. Enter the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more of the lands. Generally, you're not keeping a hand where you have less than 2 or less lands. So if you have 3 lands in your opening hand, you play those other 2 lands, and then this is your 3rd land draw. If you draw this late game, cool, it's just a dual land. These are great. They almost never enter tapped, and the one hand where you somehow kept it on 2 lands, you're already risking it for the biscuit. You could probably afford a tap land on turn 1. These are great. Dreamroot Cascade, Overgrown Farmland, Deserted Beach. Next we have our Pathways. I tend to run Pathways in 3 color decks or less, and I tend to start cutting them as soon as you go to 4 and 5. But this is 3 colors, so we are running all 3 Pathways. We got Hengegate Pathway, Branchloft Pathway, and Bark Channel Pathway. And I will give it to them. The Pathways do have gorgeous art. That is one thing I really do love about running them in my 3 or less color decks. Then we have our bounce lands. I love the borderless treatment they gave these this year in Double Masters 2022. I put them in most of my decks, partially because of art, partially because I just think they were great. Selesnya, Sanctuary, Simic Growth Chamber, Azorius Chancery. Then we have our check lands, Glacial Fortress, Sunpel Grove, Hinterland Harbor. They just reprinted those in, man, what was it, Dominaria Remastered, and they look gorgeous, so I might pick those up. And then I have a theme with all my decks where I choose a basic type or a basic art, and I make all the basics for that deck the same art. So for this one, this is one of the unsets. I want to say it's unhinged, might be wrong. But yeah, these ones are great. These are the basics I chose for this deck. This forest is foil. I did order all non-foils, but they sent me a foil, and they were like, hey, we didn't have any normals, so we sent you a foil instead. And I'm not complaining because these foils are gorgeous. So 3 forests, 3 islands, 3 plains, 9 basics. That is the deck for Arcades the Strategist. If you want a fun deck where you're drawing tons of cards, going wide with walls, and swinging around lots of damage, give Arcades a try. It's also a great deck if you want to build budget. I do have some stuff like Craterhoof, Fairies Protection in here, but when I first built this deck, before I upgraded it to where it's at right now, in what I would call its finished form, this deck was like 50 bucks. You can build this deck super cheap. All you need for Arcades to be good is some lands to cast Arcades. They don't even have to be good. Literally just basics, and you'll probably be fine. You just need lands to cast Arcades, and then you just need a bunch of walls. If you can play a bunch of walls, draw a bunch of cards, play your lands, you'll be just fine. But this is my version of Arcades the Strategist. If you want to see more deck techs, make sure you like, subscribe, and we'll be doing more in the future. See you next time. This is Logan with Wasteland MTG signing off.